Every single week, millions of Americans push a cart through those sliding glass doors, believing they are simply walking in to buy some food. But the truth is that almost every step of that trip was engineered months in advance by people the shopper will never actually meet. The layout, the lighting, the music, the price tags, and even the temperature of the air were all designed with one quiet goal in mind. That goal is to keep a shopper inside longer, moving slower, and spending far more than they ever planned to. And the wildest part is that the average family loses thousands of dollars a year this way without noticing a single dollar leave their hands. So the real question worth asking is how an ordinary grocery store quietly turns a simple errand into a slow financial leak. To understand it, a person has to start seeing the store the exact same way its designers already see it. Because to them, that building is not really a store at all. It is a giant machine built entirely out of human psychology. Every aisle is a lever, every shelf is a trap, and every shopper is a predictable pattern waiting to be nudged. Once someone finally understands how the machine works, they can never walk into a grocery store the same way again. It all starts the very second those doors slide open, before a single item ever lands in the cart. Most American grocery stores are quietly designed to push shoppers to the right, because research shows people naturally drift that direction. And that first zone is almost never filled with milk, bread, or anything a family actually came into the store to buy. Instead, it is packed with fresh flowers, warm bakery smells, and colorful produce stacked up like a beautiful painting. Therefore, the shopper's mood softens, their guard drops, and the entire trip begins riding a gentle wave of good feelings. But those good feelings are not an accident. They are simply the opening move of a much longer game. Then comes one of the oldest tricks in the entire retail business, and it manages to hide in plain sight. The most common items, like milk, eggs, and fresh bread, are almost always pushed to the very back of the store. A shopper came in for 2 or 3 basic things. Therefore, the store forces them to walk past hundreds of temptations to reach them. Every single extra aisle becomes another golden chance for something to jump into the cart that was never on the list. But the shopper honestly feels none of this as manipulation. They simply feel like they are doing a normal grocery run. Now here is exactly where the store starts reaching directly into an American paycheck. Those big displays sitting at the end of each aisle are called end caps, and they are the most valuable real estate in the whole building. Most people naturally assume that anything placed on an end cap must automatically be some kind of discount or special deal. But studies of shopper behavior show that a huge share of those end cap items are not actually on sale at all. The store simply places a normal product there, adds one bright yellow tag, and quietly lets the shopper's brain assume the rest. Therefore, the product flies off the shelf at full price, while the customer walks away believing they just saved a little money. And that little yellow tag leads straight into the most profitable illusion in the entire building. It is the illusion of the sale, and it is far more clever than most Americans ever realize. A price tag that reads 2 for $6 quietly convinces shoppers that they absolutely must buy 2 in order to get the deal. But in almost every case, a single one of those items still rings up at just $3 on its own. The store never actually required anyone to buy 2. Therefore, the shopper doubled their entire purchase for no real reason at all. This tiny trick, repeated across a full cart of groceries, is precisely where the slow financial drain truly begins. Then there is the oldest price trick in all of America, the one that every single shopper has seen 1,000 times. It is the price that always ends in 99 cents instead of a clean, honest, round number. A tired human brain reads $3.99 and instantly files it away as $3, not as basically $4. Therefore, an item that costs 1 penny under 4 suddenly feels dramatically cheaper than it honestly ever should. But multiply that single 1-cent illusion across 50 different items sitting in a cart, and that gap becomes very real money. The shelves themselves are another completely silent salesman working quietly against the shopper's own wallet. The most expensive, highest profit brands are always placed right at adult eye level, exactly where reaching hands land first. The cheaper store brands, meanwhile, are usually hidden way up on the very top shelf or pushed down near the floor. Therefore, a shopper has to physically bend all the way down or stretch all the way up just to find the better deal. But most people never actually bother. They simply grab whatever happens to be sitting comfortably in front of their eyes. And the stores absolutely do not stop at the adults, because they are carefully studying the children too. Sugary cereals and cartoon-covered snacks are deliberately placed lower down, right at the exact eye level of a small child riding in the cart. A kid instantly spots the colorful character they love, therefore they beg, and a worn-out parent gives in just to keep the peace. But that single tiny moment of surrender was planned by the store long before that family ever walked through the door. Everything about the environment is also carefully tuned to make ordinary people completely lose track of time. Most large grocery stores deliberately have no windows and no clocks anywhere on the walls, and that is never an accident. Therefore, a shopper has no natural cue at all telling them how long they have already been wandering through the aisles. The music playing softly overhead is usually slow and gentle, which quietly slows a person's walking pace without them realizing. But a slower shopper is always a spending shopper, because more time inside the store almost always means more items in the cart. Even the shopping cart itself is a quiet weapon aimed politely at the American wallet. Shopping carts have grown dramatically larger over the past few decades, and that enormous size was a very deliberate choice. A cart that looks half empty subconsciously makes a shopper feel like they simply have not bought quite enough yet. Therefore, people keep tossing in extra items just to fill that empty visual space, chasing a strange feeling of completeness. But that cart was never actually sized for the shopper's real needs. It was carefully sized for the store's profits. Now consider the friendly loyalty card, the one that always promises to save a hardworking family a little money. On the surface, it genuinely feels like a generous gift handed from the store straight to its most loyal customer. But every single swipe of that card quietly feeds the store a detailed map of exactly what that shopper buys. Therefore, the store slowly learns which items a family cannot resist and which coupons will reliably pull them right back in. The discount is completely real, but it is bait, and the shopper's own private habits are the true price being paid. There is also the rotisserie chicken, sitting warm and cheap near the back, and it is a famous trap called a loss leader. The store honestly sells that chicken for barely any profit, and sometimes even at a small, deliberate loss, because they know a shopper who walks all the way back for a $5 chicken will grab 20 other things along the way. Therefore, one absurdly cheap item becomes the perfect bait that quietly pulls an entire cart's worth of profit behind it. But the shopper only ever remembers the great deal they got, never the 12 impulse buys that came with it. The senses are honestly under attack the entire time as well, especially the powerful primal sense of smell. The fresh bakery and the roasting rotisserie chickens are often placed exactly where their aroma can drift across the whole store. A slightly hungry shopper reliably makes emotional, impulsive decisions instead of careful, logical, budget-friendly ones. Therefore, these stores work incredibly hard to make sure every customer feels just a little bit hungry the whole time. But a hungry human brain trapped inside a building full of food is exactly what this entire machine was built to exploit. And the final ambush waits patiently right there at the checkout lane, where the shopper is finally cornered. Those little racks of candy, gum, and magazines exist because a person stuck waiting in line has nothing left to do but browse. Therefore, the store places its most tempting, high-margin impulse items exactly where a tired shopper has run completely out of willpower. But that last handful of items feels harmless, even though it is often the most profitable grab of the entire trip. Now here is exactly where all of these tiny individual tricks finally add up into something genuinely enormous. Each single nudge might only cost a shopper an extra $1 or maybe $2 on any one particular trip. But the average American family visits a grocery store somewhere around 1.5 times every single week of the year. Therefore, those small, invisible leaks are not one-time accidents. They are a steady, relentless, weekly financial drip. And a steady weekly drip, quietly stretched across an entire calendar year, slowly becomes a shockingly large puddle. Picture an ordinary family that spends just $15 extra per trip on things they honestly never planned to buy. That is the impulse end caps, the fake sales, the eye-level brands, and one begging child all rolled together. Across roughly 78 shopping trips in a single year, that quiet $15 balloons into well over $1,000. And that estimate is honestly on the gentle side, because plenty of households leak far more than $15 every trip. Therefore, the true cost of all these hidden tricks can realistically climb toward $2,000 or even $3,000 every year. $2,000 or $3,000 is absolutely not pocket change to the average, hardworking American household. That is a serious car repair, an entire month of rent, or a real, meaningful start to an emergency fund. But it vanishes so quietly, just a few dollars at a time, hidden completely inside an errand nobody ever thinks twice about. And because it never once arrives as a single painful bill, the family never actually feels the moment it slips away. That is the genius and honestly the quiet cruelty of a machine designed to drain a paycheck without making a single sound. So the genuinely good news is that this entire machine instantly loses almost all of its power the moment a shopper can finally see it. A person who walks in holding a written list is dramatically harder for the store to steer off course. Someone who eats a real meal before they shop is no longer a hungry, emotional, easy target for the bakery. And a shopper who bothers to check the top and bottom shelves quietly beats the eye-level pricing trap every single time. Therefore, the single greatest defense any American has is simply a clear awareness of how the whole system truly works. The store will always be engineered to win the game, but one informed shopper completely changes the odds. Because the honest truth is that a grocery store was never actually designed to sell people food. It was carefully designed to sell people a feeling. And that feeling is exactly what quietly empties an American wallet. So the very next time those glass doors slide open, remember that the machine is already watching and already waiting. And the only shopper it can never ever drain is the one who finally understands the game.